Today we're going to be talking about all of the Minecraft 1.15 features because it just dropped. So here we are inside of Minecraft, and this is everything 1.15. And I'll be honest, this update is a little bit light. And we knew it. I mean, this is really just the bees update, and in terms of Minecraft updates, it's pretty, I mean, just bees and honey blocks and all that sort of stuff. Not that big of an update. But we have everything that is new here, so let's go through it. Starting off with, as you saw it, new blocks. Starting with the honey block, and I'm gonna quickly go down them and then kind of spend some extra time on each of these blocks. Honey block, this is how you craft it with honey bottles, and then honey block is the output, and you do get your glass bottles back, so you don't gotta worry about that. Next is the honeycomb block. You get that by putting honeycomb, and this is just a 2x2, so you can do this on your player's crafting table. It doesn't need to be in an actual crafting table, and you get the honeycomb block back from that. Next is the bee nest, and this thing is not crafted, because you just find it naturally in the world. These will spawn in only 3 different biomes: the plains, the sunflower plains, and the flower forest, which I decided to make this world just one gigantic flower forest biome. So we got flower forest in all directions. I like to find these in flower forests because flower forests have forest in the name, which means that trees will spawn, and each tree will have a 5% chance of spawning a nest, and that is what you need in order to get one. So you really want a biome that has a lot of trees. So flower forest is the best place to find these guys. Finally is the bee hive, and this is crafted using the honeycombs and any type of planks. And you get the beehive as an output. Obviously, the bee nest and the beehive is where bees will go and live in. We are going to get to the mobs a little bit later on. Up to 3 bees can be inside of any one of these, and if a bee enters as they are in pollen mode, then they will up the honey amount by 1. Once that honey amount gets to 5, then they will be filled with honey, like these guys right here. So that's a bee hive with some honey, and that is a bee nest with some honey. If you want to pick up a bee nest, you got to make sure that you are using Silk Touch in order to do it. And a bee hive, you just need anything like really anything. Moving on, let's talk a little bit more about this honey block, because there is a lot to mention. There's actually so much to mention about the honey and the honeycomb block. I have my own special video all about just these 2 blocks, where I go even more into detail than I do in this video. But we're going to cover some of the basics here. First is that honey blocks will slow the player down if you step into it, and it will also cause you not to jump as high, so you can't quite jump that full block. Also, blocks that are not a full block in height will continue that. So even on half slabs or on carpet, you get that slowing player effect, and the same thing with the jumping. You have to get off of that in order to move. Very similar to slime blocks, you can attach these to pistons and they will push things around. But unlike slime blocks, any entity that is attached, like this armor stand right here, will be pushed and pulled as well as any of the blocks that the slime block can push and pull, and it will also ignore the same blocks that slime blocks cannot push or pull. Although slime blocks themselves will not attach. So as you can see, these honey blocks be moved forward and backwards. Slime blocks, they are not affected. That means that you can double up on your, block moving abilities. So you could have a contraption that uses both honey and slime, and they won't stick to each other, allowing them to move even more blocks at once. Mobs will avoid walking on top of honey blocks, although players have a really cool thing, and that is that you can stick to the side of honey blocks. So as I fall here, I am slowed down, and then, oops, I missed. Okay, try that again. If you actually land on some slime, it will reduce your fall damage quite a lot. So I think I can fall all the way up here. Oh, it will reduce that fall damage so you don't take nearly as much damage whenever you fall onto the honey block. Bees will occasionally eat from the honey block, and they do not move redstone signals through them. Moving on to new items, and there are not a ton of them. We got honey bottles and honeycomb. If you want a honey bottle, you have to go up to a beehive or bee nest, and then you click it with the bottle, and then you get the honey bottle as a result. If you want honeycomb, go to the same thing, but this time with shears instead of a bottle, and you'll go ahead and shear that. As you can see, it makes the bees quite upset if you do that. If you don't want to make them upset, go ahead and put a campfire underneath either of the hive or the nest, and then the smoke will calm down the bees like a real apiarist. A real beekeeper. Whenever you use shears, you're always going to get 3 honeycomb, and whenever you use the glass bottle, you will always get 1 of the honey in a bottle back. There is no other option for honey. It's always going to be in a bottle. You're not just going to have pure honey sitting in your hands. Honey bottles can be consumed, and they will give you 6 hunger points. But remember, every food haunch is 2 hunger points. So it'll give you 3 food haunches whenever you consume it, and it'll give you 2.4 saturation. And you can drink a honey bottle even if you're completely full of food. The reason you can continue to drink this is because it will remove the poison effect. Similar how to milk will remove any effect, the honey will remove just the poison effect. So that way you can drink it even if you're full, if you gotta get rid of that poison. Honey blocks can be stacked up to 16 in your inventory, and if you put them directly into the crafting table, they will give you sugar as a result. And if you remove all of that, it does give you the bottles back from that crafting recipe. I wasn't planning on saying this, but honeycomb can be stacked up to 64, just the default amount. And before we move on to mods, technically there is another item that's been added to the game, and that is the bee spawn egg. But because you're not going to get that in survival, I'm not going to spend that much time on it. Moving on to new mobs, and there's really only one of them. So it's the bee. Surprise, surprise. There is no other mob. Okay, so when it comes to the bee, this is what a bee looks like. I just realized that I don't have a baby bee, so that's what a baby bee looks like. Bye, baby bee. You're so adorable. Maybe this was supposed to be a baby bee. I forget why I put you here. Oh, now I remember. Yeah, well, my redstone stuff isn't working. This bee happens to have 10 health points, but that only goes to 5 hearts. Okay, so that's not all of the, oh, I just punched that bee and now all the bees are mad at me. So that is 5 hearts when it comes to the hearts, and 10 points. When bees get angry, this is what their little faces look like. They get really, really mad, and they attack in groups just like wolves or wolves? What else attacks in groups? Pigmen. Pigmen also attack in groups. If you anger a bee, it will try to sting you. So it'll do a barrel roll and jump at you. And if it does sting you, then it will lose its stinger. So this is a bee with a stinger and pollen. And this is a bee without a stinger. And a stinger and no stinger. If it does sting you, just like a normal bee, it will die, sadly, and quickly thereafter stinging you. Bees' behavior is this: they will come out, or they will spawn when world generation happens near a nest. Then they will go out and find some flowers and do a little dance on top of the flowers, just like this guy is doing right here. After a moment of doing that dance, they will then have the nectar from that flower and will now have pollen on their behinds. That is the only bee pun I will do, so don't worry. This is what that pollen looks like, and then that pollen will go down and fall on crops, and it will actually activate on top of the crops just like bone meal does, and it will grow those crops a little bit. So if you can put your bee nests and bee hives next to a field of crops, then you will get the benefit of those crops being basically fertilized as the bees come back with those pollen particles on their butts. Bees can use any of these flowers as sources to get that nectar and pollen. And missing here is the wither rose. They go after that wither rose, but the wither rose will give them the wither effect and they will die sadly because that's what it does. If you have a flower in your hand, bees will be attracted to that flower just like like most of the mobs are attracted to various different things, like sheep are attracted to wheat and chicken are attracted to seeds. So these bees are attracted to flowers. So if I walk away, this bee will try to follow me. Oh, it looks like we have found another one. And then you can breed bees. There's 2 bees down here, but they're not cooperating. But you can click them. Here, you're free. You can click them both with a flower. They will mate, and then you'll get a little bee, a baby bee, as the output. So that is how you mate the bees, turn on that love mode. I've moved far away from those bees so that we don't get a lot of bees being super mad at me. And this is a little angry bee here. If you hit a bee, it's how it dies. But I'm hitting a bee with a normal wooden sword. They are actually affected by Bane of Arthropods because they are technically an arthropod because they have that abdomen thing, in real life. This bee is just a rectangle. But remember, the wooden sword, it took 1, 2, 3 hits with a normal wooden sword. But with the Bane of Arthropods 5 enchantment, bee down, immediately killed by by just attacking with 1 swing of this wooden sword. So that Bane of Arthropods can be very, very, very effective against a bee. Moving on to a few changes. Now, there has been an awful lot of changes. These are just some of my favorites. First is that a bell can be activated with redstone. So now if you have a redstone line going to a bell, you can activate it with that redstone. Next is that fires can be snuffed out with a shovel. So just right click on the fire as you would do on a grass block to make it a path block, and it puts the fire out. Composters have changed their recipe. Before, it was a little bit difficult to remember. Now it is as simple as any type of slab in this configuration, the upside down pants configuration, and that will give you a composter, and that is to bring parity to the Bedrock edition and the Java edition. So this is the current Bedrock edition recipe. And the last change that I'm going to show in this video is that Dark Prismarine, the recipe has been switched to have black dye instead of an ink sac, which it really just makes sense because all of the things that used to use an ink sac are now updated with black dye because that's black dye, not an ink sac. Moving on to mob changes. So those were kind of just like general changes, but these are specifically for the mobs. And the big change has really happened to iron golems. And as you can see, they have these cracks all over them. So as iron golems take damage, they will show these cracks on their bodies. Let me get a more powerful thing than just my hand. And smack, smack, smack. There we go. And you also hear there's an audible sound whenever the cracks happen. There you go. So you can hear that, like, it sounds like a lot of the breaking things in Minecraft. They're just reusing that sound. And so there's different levels of the cracks. And so this is like the most difficult and most hurt portion of that iron golem. But you can repair iron golems. Just hold some iron in your hand and click on them, and they can be fully repaired. So if you have some iron golems and you want to get them, this is sort of almost like how wolves can be fed to give their health back. You can do that with your iron golems, which is really, really nice, because if you have an awful lot of iron golems that is protecting an area and there is a big raid and they're getting hurt, this is a quick way to bring them back to full health so that you can use them over and over and over again. There you have it, everything in Minecraft 1.15. There isn't a lot, like I mentioned before, so I hope that you guys enjoy Minecraft 1.15. I'm already looking forward to 1.16, which should be the Nether update, unless they do some weird switcheroo with us and it's not 1.16, but I'm really looking forward to the Nether update with all the hoglins and pig people and just everything in the Nether that is going to be updated. I think it is long overdue for an update. Thanks so much for watching this episode of OMG Craft. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a big ol' thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe for future videos, tips, tricks, tutorials, and spotlights. And also, if you want to know even more about the honey block and honeycomb block, like I mentioned, I have a full video about that. And if you want to know even more about the bee, I have a fully dedicated video about that as well. So check those out. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.